Hello, everyone. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, one family had America laughing night after night. A hot-tempered father, a controlling mother, a patient wife, and a husband always trying to stay out of trouble. Everybody Loves Raymond became one of television's greatest sitcoms, winning Emmy Awards and leaving a lasting mark on American pop culture. But time moves on. Some are gone, some have grown old, and the stories behind the scenes became just as unforgettable. This is their then and now story. Frank Barone, portrayed by Peter Boyle at the age of 61, became one of the most unforgettable father figures in sitcom history. Frank was a retired military man and former plumber with a rough exterior, a short temper, and a habit of firing off sharp, sarcastic remarks at anyone around him. But beneath that hard shell was an aging man who deeply loved his family, even if he rarely knew how to show it. Raised in a generation built on discipline and toughness, Frank believed men should never show weakness, and that mindset shaped the constant tension between him and his sons, Ray and Robert. His stubbornness, old-school values, and blunt humor made him both intimidating and strangely lovable, turning him into the emotional backbone of the Barone household. Peter Boyle was born on October 18, 1935, in Pennsylvania, and became one of Hollywood's most distinctive tough guy actors beginning in the 1970s. He first gained major recognition for his powerful counterculture roles, especially his unforgettable performance in The Young Frankenstein. But his greatest late-career revival came with Everybody Loves Raymond, where Frank Barone brought him 7 Emmy nominations and introduced him to a whole new generation of viewers. Peter Boyle passed away on December 12, 2006, at the age of 71 in New York, after battling multiple myeloma and heart disease. Marie Barone, portrayed by Doris Roberts at the age of 71, transformed what could have been a simple traditional mother figure into one of the most powerful and unforgettable forces in sitcom history. Marie was the heart of the Barone family, but also its greatest source of chaos. A classic Italian-American mother, she lived through instinct and control, always convinced no one could care for her son Ray better than she could. She inserted herself into every dinner, every argument, and every parenting decision between Ray and Deborah, turning even the smallest family moment into emotional warfare. Beneath all her meddling, though, was a woman driven by fierce love, deep loyalty, and an almost unshakable fear of losing her place in the family she built. Doris Roberts was born on November 4, 1925, and had already built a respected television career, long before stepping into the role that would define her legacy. But it was Marie Barone that brought her to the peak of her career, earning her 4 Emmy Awards and cementing her as one of television's most iconic mothers. Before that success, Roberts endured a failed marriage, raised her son as a single mother, and fought for decades to maintain her place in Hollywood during an era when older women were often overlooked. She passed away on April 17, 2016, at the age of 90 after suffering a stroke following years of hypertension and lung disease, leaving behind a character as unforgettable as the laughter she inspired. Jeffrey Barone, portrayed by Sawyer Sweeten at just 1 year old, quite literally grew up in front of millions of American viewers. As one of the Barone twins, Jeffrey represented innocence in the middle of a family constantly surrounded by arguments, sarcasm, and emotional chaos. He was never the center of the conflict, but often became the quiet reflection of it, witnessing everything from Ray and Deborah's endless battles to the constant interference of his grandparents. Jeffrey brought softer moments into the story, reminding audiences that beneath all the dysfunction, family was still the place where children learned love, patience, and belonging. Sawyer Sweeten was born on May 12, 1995, and became one of America's most recognizable child actors through his years on Everybody Loves Raymond. Like his on-screen character, he spent much of his childhood growing up under the public eye. But after the series ended, Sweeten stepped away from Hollywood, choosing a quieter life away from fame. In adulthood, he struggled with the emotional weight that often follows early stardom and the difficult transition into normal life. On April 23, 2015, Sawyer Sweeten passed away at the age of 19 from a self-inflicted gunshot wound during a severe mental health crisis. leaving behind one of the most heartbreaking stories connected to the series. Hank MacDougall, portrayed by Fred Willard at the age of 63, brought a completely different kind of father figure into Everybody Loves Raymond. Where Frank Barone was loud, aggressive, and impossible to ignore, Hank was strange, gentle, and often seemed like he was living in his own private universe. As Amy's father, Hank carried a kind of quiet unpredictability that made every scene feel slightly off balance in the best way. He represented a different kind of family chaos, not explosive, but oddly uncomfortable and deeply funny. His awkward encounters and generational clashes with Frank created some of the show's most memorable comedic moments. With his unmatched improvisational style, Fred Willard turned Hank into the kind of supporting character who could steal an entire scene with just a look or a single line. Fred Willard was born on September 18, 1933, and became one of America's most beloved improvisational comedians across a career that lasted more than 5 decades. Often called the king of supporting roles, he built a legacy through countless sitcoms, comedy films, and television appearances, earning multiple Emmy nominations along the way. His ability to create humor that felt spontaneous and effortless made him one of the most respected comic actors of his generation. Fred Willard passed away on May 15, 2020, at the age of 86 from natural cardiac arrest, closing the curtain on one of the longest and most admired careers in American comedy. Pat MacDougall, portrayed by Georgia Engel at the age of 48, seemed at first like the perfect picture of gentleness, but slowly revealed layers far more complicated beneath the surface. As Amy's mother, Pat carried herself with soft manners, deep faith, and a voice so delicate it often felt like she was floating through the chaos around her. But over time, that fragile exterior exposed hidden marital struggles, long-buried family secrets, and quiet emotional wounds she had carried for years. That contrast gave Pat an unexpected emotional depth, making her far more than just another supporting parent. Georgia Engel had a rare gift for expressing vulnerability and quiet strength through the smallest gestures, allowing audiences to feel entire emotions through a glance or a pause. Georgia Engel was born on July 28, 1948, and became one of the most recognizable symbols of innocence and sweetness in American sitcoms, beginning in the 1970s. Her distinctive voice and fragile screen presence gave her a style that was impossible to mistake. Across decades of television, she built a reputation as one of comedy's most unique supporting performers. Off-screen, Engel lived a private life, never married, and devoted much of her time to her faith in the arts. She passed away on April 12, 2019, at the age of 70, with no official cause of death publicly disclosed, leaving behind a legacy built on warmth, subtlety, and grace. Lois Whelan, portrayed by Katherine Helmond at the age of 67, brought an entirely different kind of mother into the world of the Barone family. Sharp, wealthy, elegant, and quietly intimidating, Lois stood as the complete opposite of Marie Barone. As Deborah's mother, she came from an upper-class world and often viewed her in-laws with a mix of subtle judgment and dry amusement. If Marie represented suffocating control through emotional closeness, Lois embodied a colder, more intellectual kind of power, where every sentence felt carefully chosen and sharp enough to leave a mark. Her presence added a new layer of tension to the family dynamic, turning even simple conversations into battles of wit and pride. Katherine Helmond was born on July 5, 1929, and became one of American television's most respected and distinctive actresses, beginning in the 1970s. She gained major recognition through the hit series Soap, and later became unforgettable to millions through Who's the Boss?, where she perfected the image of eccentric but highly intelligent women. Across her long career, she earned multiple Emmy and Golden Globe nominations and was widely regarded as one of television's queens of unusual maternal roles. Katherine Helmond passed away on February 23, 2019, at the age of 89 due to complications from Alzheimer's disease, closing a remarkable 6-decade career built on elegance, wit, and unforgettable character work. Ray Barone, portrayed by Ray Romano at the age of 38, became the defining image of the modern American middle-class husband and father. Ray was a successful sports writer constantly caught in the storm between work, marriage, children, overbearing parents, and a brother weighed down by lifelong insecurity. At the center of nearly every family conflict, Ray often chose avoidance over confrontation, allowing small problems to grow into emotional explosions. He loved his wife but lacked sensitivity, loved his children but often stumbled as a father, and cared deeply for his family without ever quite finding the strength to set boundaries. That mixture of humor, weakness, and quiet love made Ray feel painfully real to millions of viewers, turning him into one of the most relatable sitcom characters of his generation. Ray Romano was born on December 21, 1957, in New York, and first built his reputation as one of America's most respected stand-up comedians before making the leap into television. The massive success of Everybody Loves Raymond made him a household name and earned him Emmy Awards, cementing his place in sitcom history. He later expanded his career even further by voicing Manny in the Ice Age films, proving his appeal across generations. Though his career saw quieter periods after his sitcom peak, Romano remained widely respected as one of the great masters of everyday observational comedy. Now, at 68, he spends much of his time with family, playing golf, supporting charitable causes, and occasionally returning to acting with the same grounded authenticity that made him famous. Deborah Barone, portrayed by Patricia Heaton at the age of 38, became one of the most relatable wives in American sitcom history. Deborah was the true backbone of the Barone household, the person holding everything together while surrounded by a husband who avoided conflict, an overbearing mother-in-law, and a family that constantly crossed every boundary. She was sharp, strong, and often brutally honest, but those edges came from carrying far more pressure than anyone around her fully understood. Deborah was never written as an idealized wife or mother. She was exhausted, vulnerable, sometimes explosive, yet always found her way back to the people she loved. That honesty made her deeply recognizable to an entire generation of American women who saw pieces of their own lives in her daily struggles. Patricia Heaton was born on March 4, 1958, in Ohio, and became one of the strongest female voices of modern television comedy. Her performance as Deborah Barone earned her 2 Emmy Awards and established her as one of the finest sitcom leads of her generation. She later reinforced that legacy with her starring role in The Middle, proving her long-lasting appeal in family-centered television. Before reaching major success, Heaton endured years of professional setbacks, personal struggles, and the emotional weight of balancing career and motherhood. Now at 68, she remains respected as one of television's most enduring actresses, continuing to write, produce, and speak openly about family, faith, and the realities of growing older in Hollywood. Robert Barone, portrayed by Brad Garrett at the age of 36, became one of the most emotionally complex brothers in sitcom history. Robert was a police officer, physically imposing and outwardly strong, yet carried a lifetime of emotional wounds from always feeling overshadowed by his younger brother Ray. He believed his parents loved Ray more, and that sense of being forgotten shaped much of his life, turning into a deep loneliness that followed him everywhere. Robert was both funny and heartbreaking, constantly searching for approval while struggling through failed relationships, insecurity, and disappointment. Beneath his awkwardness and bitterness was a man desperate to feel chosen, valued, and finally seen. That pain gave Robert a tragic depth rarely found in sitcom characters, making him one of the most human parts of the series. Brad Garrett was born on April 14, 1960, in California, and built his early career as a stand-up comedian known for his deep, unmistakable voice and dry, understated style. His performance as Robert Barone earned him 3 Emmy Awards and established him as one of the finest supporting actors in sitcom history. After the success of Everybody Loves Raymond, Garrett expanded into voice acting, live stage work, and even opened his own comedy club in Las Vegas. Though his life included an expensive divorce and several projects that failed to match his sitcom success, Brad Garrett remains one of the most respected figures in American comedy. Now at 66, he continues performing, acting, and carrying the legacy of one of television's most unforgettable characters. Amy MacDougall, portrayed by Monica Horan at the age of 33, brought the image of a woman who seemed fragile on the surface, but became one of the rare, emotional anchors in the chaotic Barone family. Amy came from a deeply conservative, eccentric, and highly structured family, which shaped her into someone with almost endless patience and understanding. When she entered Robert Barone's life, she became far more than a girlfriend or future wife. Amy was the first person who truly saw the loneliness Robert had carried for most of his life. Where others saw his awkwardness or bitterness, she saw the hurt beneath it. Her quiet compassion gave Robert something he had spent years searching for: acceptance without judgment. That made Amy one of the most quietly important emotional forces in the series. Monica Horan was born on January 29, 1964, in New York, and did not arrive in Hollywood as a major star. Instead, her role as Amy MacDougall gradually turned her into a symbol of the healing presence, often found in family-centered American television. Best known for her work on Everybody Loves Raymond, Horan built her reputation through warmth, subtle emotional honesty, and understated comedic timing. Now at 63, she lives a relatively private life, focusing on family, community arts, and charitable work while remaining closely tied to the legacy of one of television's most beloved sitcom families. Allie Barone, portrayed by Madeline Sweeten at just 5 years old, became the sharp and mischievous eyes through which much of the Barone family chaos could be seen. As the oldest child of Ray and Deborah, Allie grew up surrounded by constant arguments between her parents, endless interference from her grandparents, and the emotional storms of Uncle Robert. Unlike her younger twin brothers, Allie was old enough to understand the tension unfolding around her. That awareness gave her character a unique role in the series. She often served as the quiet observer, sometimes innocent, sometimes surprisingly wise, reflecting how children absorb far more than adults realize. Her presence reminded viewers that even amid dysfunction, children are always learning what family means. Madeline Sweeten was born on June 27, 1991, in Texas, and became one of the familiar child faces of American television during the late 1990s through her role on Everybody Loves Raymond. For many viewers, she symbolized the everyday childhood at the center of the Barone family's humor and conflict. But her life took a deeply painful turn after the tragic death of her younger brother Sawyer Sweeten in 2015, a loss that pushed her away from the spotlight for a time. Now at 35, Madeline has continued working in independent acting, writing, and theater, carrying both the legacy of her childhood fame and the weight of personal loss with quiet resilience. Michael Barone, portrayed by Sullivan Sweeten at just 1 year old, became the other half of the twin brothers who helped complete the heart of the Barone family. Michael was quieter and often in the background, but his presence represented the innocence that still existed amid the endless emotional battles of the adults around him. Alongside Jeffrey, he reflected the next generation growing up in the middle of laughter, tension, and constant family chaos. Though Michael never carried major storylines, he helped give the family its realism, reminding viewers that even in the loudest conflicts, childhood was still unfolding in the background. Sullivan Sweeten was born on May 12, 1995, and became one of the most recognizable child actors of late 1990s American sitcom television, alongside his twin brother Sawyer. After Everybody Loves Raymond ended, Sullivan chose to step away from Hollywood and live a far more private life. The greatest tragedy of his life came in 2015 when he lost his twin brother Sawyer, a loss that deeply shaped his path afterward. Now at 31, Sullivan remains largely out of the public eye, living quietly and protecting his privacy. Thank you for taking this journey back through those unforgettable memories with us. Time has changed many things, and some familiar faces are no longer with us, but the laughter they gave us still lives on. And if those memories still hold a place in your heart, don't forget to stay with us for more nostalgic journeys ahead, where the legends of television and the stories behind them continue to live on.